All right, so I don't have a ton to say about this, but I think it's very interesting. Let's see. So Marc Laidlaw, a writer for Valve, who was part of the person who wrote, who was supposed to be on. Let's see. Yeah, who was supposed to be on Half-Life 2. Episode 3, which has not come out, or Half-Life 3, which
Revenge of the Sith.
Yeah, which people call it. Leaked what he called in a blog post called a Pistol 3. And it had some name changes and some gender swaps in it, but from what most people think, it was kind of a frustrated release of the plot to Half-Life 2 Episode 3, because Valve has held off and held off and held off, and it's been years since there was any even word on Half-Life 3. So I think this is interesting when you have creators who want to tell the story and finish the story that they've started with their game and start leaking tidbits. Now, this has been said that it conflicts with some things that have been seen or said, but it also lines up with certain, promo art and other things that were heard. But I don't know.
Let's back up a bit. Let's back up.
Okay.
Marc Laidlaw. Okay. So I'm looking at his website. He posts something called Epistle 3, Dearest Playa. And then he runs down a letter, a strange sort of formatted letter, that you're saying that this is really the continuance of the story, and he switches around some names.
Yeah.
So he can sort of get away with it without getting his ass kicked.
Right, and then people went and translated it and then did the gender swaps and the name changes to make it fit, and it basically becomes Half-Life Episode 3.
And he helped write and design Half-Life, Half-Life 2, and both Half-Life 2 episodes. Says he also spent 4 years as a lead writer on Dota 2. So this is a guy that's, you want to take his word for it, and this could be his frustration of getting the story out. Maybe he thinks this is never going to come out. This is where it would have went.
Yeah.
For Episode 3 and or Half-Life 3, if it ever got made.
Yeah.
So not confirmed, Half-Life 3.
Yeah, exactly. It's interesting in that. Now, there are other people who say that, it doesn't necessarily match up. But I think it's interesting that we're at a point where I just don't know what to say about Valve in this. You have one of the most popular games of the 2000s. I mean, it started, Half-Life 1 came out in what, 98? Yeah. And, despite Valve's reputation as a quality game producer, you've got Left 4 Dead, you've got Portal, you've got Counter-Strike. You've got this company that, for whatever reason, is letting one of their most acclaimed franchises die.
It's been 10 years since Half-Life 2 Episode 2. 10 years.
So, why? Are they afraid to finish it? Or are they afraid of ruining what they started? Has it had too much critical acclaim and they don't think they can finish it? But you have to wonder about the writers and the people who worked on it, who put so much time into it, and eventually they're gonna just assume that it's never gonna get done, and they're gonna want to get their story out. I wonder if we're gonna see more versions of this. And then earlier today, it was actually announced that Half-Life 2 Episode 3 or Half-Life 3 may actually officially be passed off to someone else after this was released. And it may get done. So it's very weird to me, but we're in an era, I think, where the creatives do get to
have some control over.
Have some control over when these things happen. You can't just hold a creative hostage for 10 years.
It's weird just because when Valve comes out and they mention this, like, oh, we want to concentrate on, Steam or other stuff going on, and it's like, holy shit, do you realize how much money you're leaving on the table here?
Right.
We don't have to say that the next Half-Life has to be the best game ever. It just has to be good.
It just has to be
good.
It just has to be decent and done.
Yeah. That's it, and it'll sell more than any other game probably the past few years.
And
Like,
if it isn't perfect, if Half-Life 2 Episode 3 isn't perfect, you have Half-Life 3. Like, people love this series. The problem is now you've waited so fucking long, you run the risk of killing the interest. Sure. It's like you have to do it now or within the next 2 years or never, or you're never going to get that fan base back.
It's funny, Marc Laidlaw said, my website on Twitter, my website's down for now. I guess fanfic is popular, even a gender-swapped snapshot to a dream I had many years ago. Covering his ass probably there. So, all right. This is all Valve has to do. They just, the executive producers, they even front some of the money. They have a lot of money, Valve. And like you said, they can outsource it to someone they trust or co-produce it. Hell, you want to go the Shenmue 3 route and fucking kickstart it? How much money you think a Half-Life 3 or even Half-Life 2 Episode 3 would raise on Kickstarter? How many millions, Ian, would you raise in like 24 hours, do you think? If you wanted to even go that route just to gauge interest.
Yeah.
I mean, seriously.
If you gauged interest, it would probably be the highest
the
Kickstarter.
highest Kickstarter game ever?
Yeah.
Like automatically?
But the thing is they don't need to. And the thing
I'm just saying, just if they were afraid of interest, they could just do that?
Right. But they know they don't need to be afraid of interest. And the thing is Valve could release something. Valve could do Half-Life 2. If they called it Half-Life 2 Episode 3 to finish up Half-Life 2, they could release it on an older engine. They could release it on, say, their Left 4 Dead 2 engine, because Valve is known for using their engines over and over. It doesn't have to be the most graphically pretty game if you're finishing up Half-Life 2.
Yeah, finish up a 10-year-old game. So you
just get some good story writers in there and fucking pump it out. Like, that's it. And then you have a fresh slate for Half-Life 3.
Okay,
Anyways,
so I didn't see the news, but I guess you saw the news that they might actually be moving forward with Half-Life 3.
Yeah, that was just today. Like, honestly, like when we were talking on the phone, pulling back the curtain, going over our topics today.
Me and you aren't friends really outside the podcast.
Yeah, no, we just fucking throw notes wrapped around shit to each other.
We speak through agents, and lawyers outside the podcast.
Right. It was like 2-3 hours earlier that I started to notice that stuff. So, anyways.
All right. My gut's going to be they're just going to skip Episode 3 and just roll it into Half-Life 3. That's what I think.
No, I mean, that's probably right, and that would make sense, too, as long as that part of the story gets covered.
Yeah, maybe you finish that up for, like, whatever, 45 minutes, an hour, I don't know.
Yeah.
I've barely played Half-Life 2. I love the first Half-Life, so I don't know what that is, but that's my
First
guess.
one's fun. Never really played the second.
First one is outstanding.
Yeah.
So, one of the best games ever.